Hello, today I'm going to be reading chapter 23 of Takeout by Margaret Maron. Vincent Haas settled into the booth's brown leatherette cushion and looked around with approval, especially when he saw someone light up at the bar. He pulled out a pack of cigarettes and offered them to Sigrid, who shook her head. "Will it bother you if I do?" he asked. "No, it's all right. I'm not a chain smoker, but not being allowed to on the plane was rather hard. I drank 3 beers and managed to sleep most of the way over. And now I hear that soon Americans will not be able to smoke in any restaurant." Sigrid recognized a delaying tactic and did not rise to it. The station house had recently gone smoke-free, and while there had been some grousing among the uniforms, the only smoker on her team was Detective Ruben Gonzalez, who was trying to quit and looked upon the ban as a helpful crutch. She saw no need to share that with Haas. "Did my father smoke?" "Newman smoked a pipe," she said carefully as their waiter approached. "What'll it be, ma'am?" he asked Sigrid. Bourbon and Coke, please." "Anything to eat?" She shook her head. "And for you, sir?" Haas inquired about the brews on tap, then ordered an ale. "And a cheeseburger, medium rare. I am in love with American cheeseburgers," he confessed to Sigrid with what was probably meant to be a winning smile. "Must be in my DNA," which produced an awkward silence. After a moment, Ha- Haas exhaled a stream of smoke and met it head-on. "You do not think he is my father, do you?" "As you say," Sigrid murmured, "DNA. I gave a sample this morning. I want this clearly determined as much as you and Mr. Livingston." Sigrid was surprised. "But what will they compare it with? Newman had no close relatives." "I don't know. Maybe they just want my DNA in case a sample of his should turn up." Their drinks arrived along with a dish of peanuts and sesame sticks. "And your cheeseburger will be right out," said the waiter. "What was he like?" Haas asked. A flood of images and memories tumbled through Sigrid's head, none of which she particularly wanted to share. But if this man was Newman's son, it would be selfish not to. "He liked to drive fast," she said. "He had a yellow MG, and he only put the top up if it was raining." Haas stubbed out his cigarette and took some peanuts, but before they reached his mouth, his hand stopped in midair. "Yellow MG? Back home I drive a yellow Fiat Spider." At her blank look, he said, "That's a convertible, too." He clearly found a confirming significance to this coincidence, and Sigurd felt herself sympathizing with his desire to connect with Newman, to find a link to the man he now considered his father. "Are you married?" "Yes, with 2 daughters." Without being asked, he opened his wallet and showed her the pictures. Anna and Maria Louise. She tried to see even the faintest resemblance to Newman and failed. "They take after their mother?" "Luckily for them, yes." "What about your mother?" "Your mother?" she asked, as his cheeseburger and fries arrived. "Leila Nagy. Will you try to see her soon?" "I went there first," he said, which made Sigurd think better of him. "My mother—" He hesitated and gave a helpless gesture. "For as long as I can remember, Anja and Klaus Haas were my mother and father. It is hard to think of Leila as my mother." "I can appreciate that," Sigurd said. My mother did not say how often she wrote, and I feared that Leila might be anxious because the letters had stopped." He took a bite of his cheeseburger with a sad smile. "I need not have worried. Did she know you?" "No. I was not allowed to speak to her except through glass. That first day I held up pictures of my mother, her sister, and a picture of me when I was 3. There was no spark. Nobody there. I spoke to the officials and to her doctor. I told them how far I had come and why. The doctor was very nice. He said to come back the next day and he would withhold her drugs until then. He said that she could become violent without them, but he would do this for me. He drained his glass of ale and lifted it to signal their waiter for a refill. Did it make a difference? Yes. She was fairly cognate at first, spoke German to me, and seemed sad when I told her that Anja had died. But I don't think she fully understood who I was, even though I showed her the pictures again. Then I made a mistake. I said Oscar Newman's name, and that got a string of curses. She began beating on the glass between us. She must have thought I was him. The guards had to come and take her back to her ward. She sighed. I do not think I will go back. The waiter set a fresh glass of ale on the table and took away the empty one. Sigurd still had half her bourbon, and she sipped it as Haas took an envelope from the inner pocket of his jacket. This is a picture of Leela shortly after she came to New York. He laid the photo on the table, then placed another beside it. And this is what she looks like now. They let you take her picture? He nodded. Sigurd picked them both up and held them side by side. The first was recognizable from the photos Rudy Gottfried had showed her. Long dark hair, slender figure, flashing eyes. Except for the manic eyes, the second bore no resemblance at all. Short hair, completely white, puffy face, no trace of her former beauty. Sigurd slid the pictures back to him. I'm sorry, she said. It must be very painful for you. Worse if I thought I had inherited her madness. My mother had me examined by psychiatrists when I was a child and again when I was 16. She told me it was because she was afraid there might be some strain in the family blood and that I might become like my aunt. They assured her I was quite normal. Boringly normal, in fact. Which is probably why mathematics fascinated me. You're a statistician, right? I'm going to absolutely butcher this word, but Virgis mathematiker, actually. He smiled. I'm an actuary for a large insurance corporation. No artistic talent from either parent. Which brings us back to Newman, Sigurd thought. Will you be staying here long? Until it can be proven one way or another if I am Oscar Newman's son. And if you are, that will depend on you, Lieutenant. He pushed the remains of his cheeseburger aside and lit another cigarette. Some men acknowledge their bastards, others do not. I think you probably knew him better than anyone. You will know what he would do, yes? When she did not answer, he said, and I think you will do whatever that is. Sigurd drank the last of her bourbon, and signaled to the waiter. No, no, said Haas. Please, you must let me take care of the bill. She thanked him, and as she stood to go, she said, My lawyer knows where you're staying. He nodded. Then I won't say goodbye. And that is the end of chapter 23. And I will see you, I'm going to post the last video for today to get all caught up in about a half an hour. So, as always, have a wonderful rest of your day.